What's up, everyone, and welcome to MMA Fighting's UFC on Fox 23 preview show. I am your host, Danny Segura, and joined to the screen next to me is Mr. Jed Meshew from MMA Fighting as well, and he'll be helping me out break down the top storylines of this card, as well as the matchups. So obviously, headlining this card is a women's bantamweight bout pitting Valentina Shevchenko and Juliana Peña. So very interesting fight there. But before we start actually talking about the fights, I want to get your sort of excitement level on this card. You know, some people are really excited about it, Luke Thomas being one of them. Some not so much. I want to get your your opinion on it. And from 1 to 10, what would you rate this card on paper?
I'm going to put you on blast, Danny, and let everybody know that we were talking about this beforehand, and you're definitely on the lower end of the excitement spectrum. I am not. I'm with Luke. I think this is a really good, exciting, interesting card. From top to bottom, we're not going to talk about the undercard, but I think there's a lot of good, well-made fights happening on the undercard, and the main card has interesting storylines that matter, like the main event especially. So I'm excited. I would give it an 8 out of 10.
That's pretty high. Mine is definitely a bit lower. I'd probably go 7.2, 7.1, around there. I do agree with you. There are some fights that are very important for the division. Obviously, the main event. And, there are some exciting fights. Probably, the one I can think of at the top of my head would be Masvidal versus Cerrone. But, maybe not, I'm not riding on this card probably as high as you. But, definitely a decent card by the UFC. So now let's talk about the main event. Valentina Shevchenko versus Juliana Peña. This is number one fighting number two, and the UFC hasn't publicly come out and said, hey, this is a title eliminator bout. But I mean, can we conclude the winner of this will be fighting for the title?
I think absolutely they're fighting for the title. I haven't done the research on it, but off the top of my head, there's only one time I can ever think with a consensus two best fighters in the division aside from the champion fought, and it didn't lead to a title shot. And that happened last year. Frankie Edgar versus Jose Aldo. They fought for an interim title, so it was supposed to lead to a title shot, and then that title became the real one, and we all know what happened there. Anybody listening, feel free to blow me up on Twitter and be like, no, this happened in 2002. But as far as I'm aware, that never happens, and I think this is a very easy, clear-cut number one contender bout, and it's going to be a good one.
Now, Juliana Peña, before this even got booked, she's been campaigning for a title shot. She believes she deserves a title shot, and she believes she should be fighting for the title. And a lot of people think that, a lot of people agree with her, but obviously now she's fighting Valentina Shevchenko. Is this bout killing a contender? Because the UFC could have, pit up Amanda Nunes and Juliana Peña, and then, maybe give Shevchenko someone else, and then have her ready to fight, the winner of that. What are your thoughts on this fight? Do you like this matchup, number one versus number two, or do you think perhaps is killing a contender here?
I love this matchup because I think it is not killing a contender. And I mean that because I don't think there is a contender right now. If just as the division lies, if you have to give her somebody to fight, you can always pluck somebody to do it. But I'm pretty firmly against Juliana Peña's claims that she's done enough to warrant the title shot. She's certainly not done the Max Holloway, Demian Maia, that type of long, ridiculous Tony Ferguson list of wins to get there. And if you look at her wins, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or denigrate anybody, but her opposition in the UFC has not been stellar. Their combined winning record of her UFC foes in their own respective UFC competitions is 4-11 and 1 no contest, and 2 of the 4 wins came from Kat Zingano in her last fight. So I think that she does need a big marquee win to hang her hat on if she wants to claim that she deserves it. And if she beats Valentina Shevchenko, 100%, definitely absolutely deserves a title shot. On the other end of that, I think Valentina Shevchenko, she's 1-1 in her last 2. Granted, it was a close fight with Nunes, but I think she needs another win. A win over Peña locks it in as that. So I think this is a great fight for that reason, because to answer your question, I don't think it's killing a contender because there aren't any other real contenders. A lot of the bantamweight division, 2 of the top 10 are about to fight for the featherweight title and ostensibly leave the division. The only other person even close to a title shot right now is Raquel Pennington. I guess maybe Sarah McMahon has a win, but she needs a couple of wins first. So I don't think you're losing anything. I think either fighter survives the loss pretty well. and moves on, and we get a great fight with a very bulletproof number one contender.
Okay, so give us your official pick. Who are you picking in this fight?
Well, I may have given the goat away by saying bulletproof
Yeah.
because I am picking Valentina Bullet Shevchenko to win. If you follow my work with MMAfighting.com or me on Twitter, you should know by now that I am extremely high on Shevchenko. I think that she is probably the best women's bantamweight on the planet. I think she is absolutely, to me, the best women's flyweight on the planet. And there's been a lot of rumors about the UFC opening that division up this year. If they do so, I would put a lot of stock in her dropping down and taking that title. But until they do, I think she still may well be the best 135 on the planet. You know, her one loss in the UFC was a very close battle with the current champion, who, you know, was granted. Amanda Nunes has improved since then, absolutely. But I think if you ask a lot of people who know things about the sport, they'll say, yeah, you know, Nunes came out, did very well early, started fading, and Shevchenko was winning that fight late. And if you give her 2 more rounds, that was only a 3-round fight at the point. If you give her 2 more rounds, maybe she wins. Maybe she even gets a stoppage. I think in a 5-round fight, I don't believe there's a bantamweight on the planet I would pick over Valentina Shevchenko. I think Juliana Pena will fight for a title at some point, but I like Bullet to take the win.
Okay, so let's move on now to the co-main event. Jorge Masvidal is finally getting the big fights he's been asking for. Obviously, Ross Pearson, Jake Ellenberger, and now Donald Cerrone. Those are big names, and he's sort of finally getting the names he's been calling for. Interesting fight here. I'm definitely not complaining about the matchup. Probably my favorite fight of the card on paper. But does this fight make sense? I mean, Donald Cerrone ranked number 5, Jorge Masvidal ranked number 12. Promotionally, does this fight make sense?
It doesn't from our traditional understandings of promotion because, like you said, 5 versus 12, this isn't really building towards much, but it makes sense because it's Cowboy. Like, he just wants to be active. He wants to get out there and fight, and he wants to fight every 3 months, and Jorge Masvidal was calling him out. If you or I called out Cowboy and nobody else was there, he'd fight us. Like, he just wants to be active. So I don't have any problem with it. Like you said, I think this is maybe the best pure fight on the card. So I'm really excited to watch it. I do sort of wish it was 5 rounds, but no, it doesn't make sense from our traditional understanding. But you also have to remember, the welterweight division is in disarray at the moment. We've got that trifecta at the top of the Thompson, Woodley, Maia. That's going to take a while to sort itself out. So, traditionally Cerrone should be fighting Robbie Lawler, and I sure hope they make that fight. That would be amazing. But it's okay for him to spin his wheels a little bit because the division is going to take some time to work itself out.
Mm-hmm. Official pick?
Donald Cerrone, but not without trepidation. I think it's a really close, well-made fight. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth affair. I'm picking Cowboy because he has looked so good since moving up, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, definitely an exciting fight and a close fight, too, if you look at the odds. I mean, I believe Masvidal is just a slight underdog. But now let's talk about the only heavyweight bout in the main card, which is Andrei Arlovski versus Francis Ngannou. In my mind, the matchmaking behind this is very much like the Yair Rodriguez versus BJ Penn. You got a former champ in his older stages, perhaps not in the best streak, versus a very hot rising prospect in Ngannou, obviously. And a lot of people were not really comfortable pitting BJ Penn against Yair Rodriguez. That was probably the main criticism behind that bout. My question to you is, are you comfortable with Arlovski fighting Ngannou?
I'm absolutely comfortable with it. I understand what you're saying by comparing this sort of to the Penn Rodriguez fight. I think there are some key differences that are substantive and that make a difference. Mm-hmm. The main one to me is that Andrei Arlovski is still one of the 10 best heavyweights on the planet. And Francis Ngannou, who in my opinion, Francis Ngannou is the best heavyweight prospect we've had since Cain Velasquez. I think he has an incredible ceiling in the sport, and he's getting way, way better, and he's going to challenge for a title eventually. But, he hasn't fought the level of competition that verifies our belief in him yet. He's beaten good guys, and he's done it impressively, but he does need to take a step up. And Andrei Arlovski is by far the best fighter Ngannou will have ever faced. Whereas the Yair Rodriguez, I agree with you. I do think the ultimate goal here is, we're going to build this young hotshot prospect off of the back of killing, the veteran former champion. But BJ Penn was not a lateral move even for Yair Rodriguez. It wasn't a step up in competition. It was just a name value promotional tool. I think Andrei Arlovsky can totally win this fight, and so I have no problem with this matchup.
Now, yeah, obviously, this is I meant Yair Rodriguez versus BJ Penn. Similar matchmaking, obviously to a lesser degree, because Arlovsky, as of not so long ago, he was in the cusp of a title shot. But my question to you is: retirement has been a hot topic, obviously with BJ Penn, then Tito Ortiz. Is perhaps Andrei Arlovsky in that territory where fans are claiming, "Hey, man, you should maybe consider hanging up the gloves"? He is 37 years old and currently on a 3-fight losing streak. Is he entering that territory in your eyes?
The last time we did one of these, we talked about a lot about retirement. It was Uriah Faber's, farewell tour, and I'm firmly of the opinion that in this sport, especially if you're hanging up too soon, you're probably right on time. If Andrei Arlovsky chooses to walk away now, I won't have any issues with it. I also don't think he needs to at this point. Let's not, like you said, let's not forget. Last year, just a year ago, he was 1 win away from a title fight. He fought Stipe Miocic. Miocic, obliterated him. But if things had broke that way, if he had landed the punch that he needed to, he's fighting for a title. Maybe something happens. Maybe he's the heavyweight champion right now. That is not an unrealistic scenario to have happened. And the other thing to remember is about 6 years ago, 2010, 2011, when the Fedor loss for Arlovsky happened, he went on a 4-fight skid that he's spoken openly about being in this terrible place. But he rebounded. He, got with Greg Jackson, and they retooled everything about his game and made him much better at it and better to put together what almost was a title run. So, and that was against a much lower level of competition than his current losing streak is. I think that if he wants to stick around after this fight, he can and will still and hopefully would continue to put up meaningful wins at heavyweight. And, I don't think we need to box him up yet. He's still got some left.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Francis Ngannou. There's not that many prospects in the heavyweight division for some reason or another. You could make the case that there's probably only 2 at this point, Derek Lewis and, Ngannou. But I'm curious to know, in your opinion, how high is Ngannou's ceiling here? He's shown, obviously, some promise. Physically, he's got advantage over most heavyweights, I would say. How far do you think he goes along in this heavyweight division?
I think, like I said, he's the best heavyweight prospect we've had in a long time. He's so young in his game, and it's developed and skilled already, and he's getting better. He's a ridiculous athlete, and a lot of people probably know this story, but just important to point out. In his last fight against Anthony Hamilton, he locks up that Kimura grip from standing, uses it as a takedown, and then finishes it, which is a ridiculous finish in general. But it's also something he learned in the back right before that fight. Like, he'd never done it in live practice or anything. His coaches were just messing around and showed him something in the back, and he used it in a live fight against one of the 25 best heavyweight fighters on the planet.
Big deal.
Like it was nothing. Like, it's like, I'm gonna mess around and do this. That should tell you what we're looking at here. This guy has all the potential in the world. I think we absolutely see him fight for a title at some point, and I think that it's a pretty decent chance he ends up being a champion at some point.
I have a feeling who you're going to go with this one, but please give me your official pick here.
I'm absolutely going with Francis Ngannou, but I also do think that I'm not counting Andrei Arlovsky out, not just because it's heavyweight and he's got a puncher's chance. It is such a steep jump up in competition for him. Andrei Arlovsky is a technical, well-rounded veteran guy. He could make this fight interesting against a young prospect. I still think at the end of the day, Francis Ngannou hits really hard, is pretty good at finding ways to land that punch, and Andrei Arlovsky doesn't do that well when he gets hit really hard. So I'm going to pick Ngannou. I think the fight might actually end up being super boring, a la Arlovsky-Frank Mir, where they stare at each other until the kill shot finally comes. But I think that Arlovsky has a chance here. I just have to pick Ngannou.
Okay, and opening the main card is Alex Caceres versus Jason Knight. Not a huge storyline here, but please just give us your official pick and who you're going with in this fight.
No big storyline, but my official pick is that this one is actually going to sneak in and steal Fight of the Night.
Possibly,
I think this and the Cerrone Masvidal are right there for Fight of the Night. There's not a lot going on here as far as future champions and stuff, but Jason Knight, affectionately referred to by many as Hick Diaz for his fighting style and his country roots, are just, he's a sensational guy to watch fight. And Alex Caceres is a pretty fun fighter too. I'm going to pick Jason Knight because I think he does what Caceres does better. He's got more firepower on the feet. He's a savvier, trickier grappler. But I think it's going to be a barn burner of a fight. I'm really excited for that one too. I think it's a great way to open the card.
Yeah, definitely a good fight to open up the main card. Well, Jed, thank you so much for your insight as always. Remember, follow MMA Fighting for all your coverage for UFC on Fox 23, and you can follow me at Danny Segura TV on Twitter, and you can follow Jed Meshew as well on Twitter at JedK Meshew. So thank you guys for watching this video, and we'll catch you guys next time.